Hi, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Ray Castillo, CEO and founder of Price Support Services.
Xavier, Director of Operations.
And welcome back to our live discussion on age gap.
Yes. And what you guys just saw was the trailer for the movie that was selected by you, which is Call Me By Your Name. And it's a wonderful story about two men that fall in love that have an age gap.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I think we covered this topic once already as far as age gap, and we had a really good positive turnout as far as that. Some people really like the idea of talking about this topic that is really important, right, in our community. And we figure, why not bring it back, and why not actually select two movies that talk about that. And then everybody voted on this one, so we watched it. Personally, I hadn't watched it, so I watched it twice already since, and I fell in love with it. So
and cried.
Well, I didn't cry, but I almost did. It was very intense and very good. So again, today's topic is going to be age gap. And no, we do not have any producers today on the show except for us two. But we'll be talking to you. And again, if you guys, hi, Michael. If you guys are online checking us out, please let us know your questions. If you have any questions or comments, we'd love to actually read them out loud here. I think it's going to be pretty interesting to hear those comments. So, Xavier, let's jump in and let's talk a little bit about the movie, right? We're going to have the discussion about the movie, and then we'll jump in about the topic. So, we have a couple here, right, that meet through an internship.
Internship, yeah. Oliver is an intern for Elio's father.
Yes.
I think it's an architecture archaeology intern.
Right.
And they fall in love.
Right. So, there was a lot of things going on. And before I actually watched it, I started discussing it with some of my close friends. It's like, what is your take on it? And one of the first things that popped up, and I agreed, was that, that the age gap difference between Elliot and Oliver really wasn't that much in consideration to what today's normal age gap, within our context of our community happens. But anyway, hey, Zachary. So, when I first saw Oliver, first of all, I was kind of shocked because he did not look like a 24-year-old.
He looked way older than 24.
Yeah, he did. So, when I came to find out that he was only 24 years old, I'm like, okay, he does not look it. But then again, we got to go on based on what the movie is saying. But certainly didn't look and like a 24-year-old. And then his attitude as well, his very mature. Obviously, this is a PhD student, right? So obviously he has a lot of studies under his belt and so forth. But that was kind of cool. That was my first intake when I first saw it.
Yeah, it was very nice to see. I'm a sucker for love. I'm a sucker for anything romantic. I'm a sucker for drama. So to me, it was very, very nice to see how their love story develops. It was very nice to see, not only because last time we talked about, or last week when we were discussing the movie Fourth Man Out, we were talking about acceptance, right? And how parents and coming out and things like that. And it was very refreshing to see how the characters develop their love and the reaction to their parents. We're talking about a 17-year-old falling in love with a 24-year-old.
Right. And I'm glad you brought that because we forgot to, first of all, a disclosure, right? Obviously this takes place in the 1980s, 83, if I'm
1983.
1983. And then again, also, you got to keep in mind that, Italy as a country is in Europe. Europe rules and laws are very different than the United States. So I want to put that out there that, legal age here in the United States is 18 and over. So we're going to talk about not so much in the context of him being a 17-year-old, but that age gap difference, right? Which is what we want to kind of concentrate. So, but it was a pretty exciting movie. I think that, it was one of those where, you're excited. You don't know what's going to happen, what's going to take place. And then things start to happen, right? It was a kind of like a love-hate relationship between both of them.
At the beginning, yeah. It was I think they were both in denial of what they felt, and that made it interesting.
Well, what's interesting is going back toward like when this is like way ahead toward the end. Whenever Elliot they're talking in the balcony and they've already kind of have been intimate and whatnot. Oliver does tell Elliot, "I did reach out to you." When he was playing volleyball and he came. And and it was so funny because when I first saw that, and Elliot's reaction to it, moving kind of away from him, I was like, "Oh, chill. He's not doing anything. He's just," but he really was sending some signals, right? And then from that, it was kind of like, he backed away because he thought that, he obviously was doing something inappropriate, right? He's a 17-year-old kid of the professor's son, right? That he's in an internship with. So there's a lot of dynamics there that could have gone definitely wrong, right?
And I think at one point Oliver mentions it when they're in the scene in the field when they kiss. Oliver tells Elio, "We don't want to do we haven't done anything that we have to regret yet."
Right.
And I want to keep it that way. So it's kind of like that dynamic, as Oliver doesn't want to get in trouble and ruin his internship. So.
Right. But what really kind of stroked me, and it was kind of intense and I loved it, it was that this is a 17-year-old kid who is very go-getter. Like he doesn't care. He doesn't mind. He knows what he wants and he's going for it. At the beginning, he struggled. But then, that scene where they're like just talking with the first time that they actually kiss and he's like going for it. And it's, it brings me back to those moments, right? Where I remember me in my personal relationship, which we've always talked about, that age gap between me and my partner is 14 years, right? And I remember being kind of aggressive in so many different ways. I remember, being kind of like the Elliot type with my partner, Chris, and he's like, slow down. And then here I am like a tiger. It's like, all over him. So that was kind of cute.
It was very cute. I think Elio's maturity was not typical for, a 17-year-old.
Yes.
He is the son of a very notable professor.
Yes.
He's very smart, speaks 3 languages.
Yeah.
Italian, French, and English.
Yeah.
He's
a musician.
Yeah. So there was a maturity level there also that was very, I think that's kind of what put him in that spot to be able to express what he was feeling indirectly, because it was never directly. The scene where he comes out to Oliver was very, very indirect.
Yeah, and what I like about it, so they're here at this war memorial place, and how Elliot kind of just comes out and tells him, "Well, and then he tells him, but why you're telling me?" And he's like, "Because I wanted you to know."
Yeah.
That was very direct.
So Chris Heredia. So Chris says that he didn't see the struggle. What do you mean, Chris, when you say you didn't see the struggle?
Tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that struggle. Is it you didn't see the struggle? Are you referring to the relationship part of it, or the beginning? Just kind of give us a little bit more on what you mean by that, so that we can talk a little bit more. Thank you for the question. But please send us your questions, your comments as we're discussing this. We want your input and we want to hear from you as well. So going a little bit further, because obviously time is of the essence here. We want to get to the talking about age gap. The movie does a fine puts it in a fine way on how these parents, both parents, know from the beginning what is going on, and you see Dad reaching out to Elliot in a scene where he's saying, "We're here for you if you need to talk to us." And I thought that was so incredible, so beautiful. Unfortunately, and I don't want to get ahead of the discussion, but unfortunately, that's not the reality, right? We talked about that for a lot of people, right? Especially being 17 years old, right? When you're so young and immature, or considered immature in so many ways, right? But we have parents that are very supportive, right, of this kid who is trying to find out who he is in life, right?
And it's very interesting. I think one of the most impactful scenes for me, of the many scenes that were impactful for me, was when they're laying on the couch and mom is translating the book from German, and there's an excerpt of the book where it says, "Is it better to speak or to die?" And then that's where dad, for the first time, says, you can talk to us about anything. Right. So that to me was like, wow,
that was very powerful, right? And I think personally, coming from a background of being married to in a heterosexual relationship with a woman for 20 years and having three kids, which love my boys, and then deciding to actually step out of that marriage to be who I am, right? Which is not an easy thing to do. We put it into that context of how difficult it is these days to actually do that, but then go back to the parents and see in the 1980s how they're taking it and how they're actually supporting the son, which is amazing and beautiful.
And Chris just replied to us and said, since Elliot's parents know and were fine with it, everything was too perfect in the movie. And yes, you're absolutely right, Chris. And we kind of talked a little bit about it in last week when we discussed Fourth Man Out. Yes, these movies tend to have a very kind of
Hollywood
best case scenario.
Right.
But I think it also, it was more, the movie wasn't so much about the parents' struggle with the boy's sexuality. It was about his own struggle.
Right.
With his sexuality.
Correct.
And falling in love with a man who
happened to be older, right? And happened to be, unfortunately for short term there. So that was very difficult, but
you're right, Chris. Yeah, it's not portrayed. It's not portrayed as a tragedy. It's not portrayed as a coming out story of parents struggling with their child's sexuality. Right. But at the same time, the comment that I made last night when we were watching it, and we kind of had a discussion about it, it's like, generally speaking, parents who tend to have a higher level of education tend to be more open-minded about these things. And I'm not generalizing now, of course. But that's kind of the norm that you see. And we're talking about, a professor. They never say what his mom was, but I mean, she spoke English, French, Italian, and German.
Right.
So we're talking about a person that intellectually, was had a high intellectual capacity. So generally in psychology, we tend to see that people who tend to have a higher level of education tend to be more open-minded and accepting about these types of things.
Right.
But not generalizing though.
Right. No, we don't want to generalize, right? But going back to Chris's comments, thank you, Chris. Then again, this is a movie, right? And this is one of those where you have to take what is given to us, right? And how, if there's anything that we can apply to ourselves, right, through it and learn some things. I think movies do, most of them do a great job at bringing some sort of message, right? Fourth Man Out last week was bringing that message of coming out, and it's okay, and and you'll be accepted. And we talked about that's not the norm in our community, right? And here we have a boy who's being supported by his parents, not only being okay with his sexual orientation or in sexuality, but also being with someone who's older than he is, right? Which again, sometimes parents may be okay with the fact that, okay, man, well, if you want to be gay or you're still kind of experimenting and trying to figure who you are is okay. But what happens when you bring home someone who is 20 years older than you are? Or what happens when your mom is the same age as this person or younger than you are? What happens then, right? That's the question, right? Where parents may struggle with that, right? Definitely. So that's something that I like to put out there, and I like to hear some comments from you guys. So if you guys don't mind giving me your comments of what do you think about that, right? And should the input of the parents matter in this situation, right? Again, not talking from a 17-year-old perspective. I'm talking from a relationship, right? should we go based on what parents say? And I know that's a cultural thing for most of us. You know, there's the cultural aspect, there's the religious aspect, and then there's the social norm aspect of it, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So we had the opportunity to talk to some really cool people, Mr. Chris Hare and Scott Sisk, and kind of get their perspective. We had a very nice conversation about how do they feel and what do they think, you know, in a general perspective is their appreciation of all of this.
Right.
Obviously, Chris is Ray's partner. They have a 14-year age gap. I'm gonna leave that to you to guess who's older.
I can tell you that. Love you, baby.
But yeah, so what did they say?
So yeah, okay. One more thing before we go into this. Not that, you know, it's very interesting to see that at the end when Elliot has the conversation. I didn't want to leave this out.
Yeah.
The conversation with Dad. And Dad actually, you know, comes out to telling him that, hey, you know, he had struggled himself, but didn't pursue that that he should have, right? So anyway, let's go on because I just wanted to throw that out there, right? All right. So there's another thing. Go ahead, read that one.
Okay, so for parents, it's hard to accept, but their love is bigger than that. At the end of the day, is your life. Be happy. You're absolutely right, Chris. And I think that was the message of the movie.
And Dad did say that too. It's your life. You know,
I think he says our bodies grow old and
then nobody wants it. Afterwards. Yeah. So live your life. Yeah, that was the message. Live your life now to the fullest, right?
Yeah, and that was the whole point of the movie. It was their love story.
Absolutely,
that was the movie. It was about their love story.
However, let's go back on that because I don't want to also undermine that. You know, for most parents, right? Because I'm a parent myself, right? I have 3 boys who are older than 19 years of age, between 19 and 23, right? And I've always been the type of parent that I've been very open-minded with my children as far as like who they want to date and who they want to. So as long as obviously as a father, as a dad, I'm always like, be careful with this, be careful with that, because we do want the best for our children. I think that's the, you know, from a parental perspective, right? We want the best for our children. However, as parents, do we really know what the best is for our children? No. Right? Because at the end of the day, we have to allow our children to be who they want to be and date who they want to date, but be there as a parent, as support.
You said do.
Okay. Did I say do?
No, you're fine. You fixed it.
Okay. We want to be there, you know, and we also want to support our children, right? But, you know, what Chris was saying also, you know, yeah, love is bigger than anything else. But it also depends because not a lot of people, right? Whether you are the young person with parents who do not support you or you are the other person who's coming into this relationship, right? Everybody has their own perspective and everybody is going to look at that differently, right? So, yeah, it's a touchy subject. I think, yeah, no matter what, I think you're right. Love is what should drive the relationship and nothing else. That's just my best opinion that I can give as far as that.
And before we leave today, we're going to give a few tips on how to work in age gap relationships too.
Perfect. So let's go ahead and jump on to, so one of the questions that we asked was, you know, what is it for you to be in a relationship with a younger man, right? And this was asked to Chris, my partner, and his you know, again, we're 14 years of age gap. And we've been together for 3 years. You know, and this is his answer. He says, age gap means less the older you both get. So,
and when he said that, it made a lot of sense to me. Because yeah, you know, it's not the same to have, you know, from a societal perspective, it's not the same to have an age gap of a teenager and an adult than it is to have an age gap between 2 grown adults or what society considers a mature adult or 2 mature adults.
Well, and this is what, you know, when we asked him what did he mean by that, he did talk about 2 points, maturity and social stigma, right? So when it comes to maturity, he says that he thinks that success in a relationship is higher when both are older because of what Xavier just said. And then when it comes to the social stigma, he says that he felt that is more accepting in the eyes of the public and less noticeable, like less of an eye catcher, right? When it's two people that are, in an age where maybe people see them from a context of being a little bit more mature and more much older. Go ahead.
So Chris, he has a question. He says, why do old guys stop living and dreaming their life after a certain age? Do they die? Do they have a switch? Because you see, Oliver wasn't the typical old guy. Yes.
Yeah. Well, there's we got to break that down because there's different dynamics to that question, right?
Definitely.
So let's start with, why do old guys stop living and dreaming their life after a certain age? I think it's maturity. I don't think it's that they stop living or dreaming. I think that for most people, we continuously dream till the day we die.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there comes a certain maturity level when you cross. I can honestly tell you from my own experience, right? Because I'm only 25, going on 30. As a 42-year-old man, I can honestly tell you that when I crossed my 40 years of age, and I crossed, my mindset really changed. What used to be important was no longer the most important thing. I started seeing life very differently. Mm-hmm. I started making goals for myself that were very different, that when I was in my 30s, I didn't even think about, right? Mm-hmm. Such as, for example, what am I going to do after retirement? That's something that a 20 and 30-year-old is not thinking. But once you cross that 40, you're already thinking, what do I want to do, right? And here I am, I'm almost finished with school. I'm starting a new career in mental health. So I'm thinking, what am I going to do? How many years of practice am I going to do? And how am I going to retire? What am I going to do? What do I want for life? Who is the person that I want? So there's a lot of stuff that happens when you cross those 20 mark, and then you go into your 30 mark, and then you go into your 40 mark. You continuously change your thinking into a more mature level.
Yeah, and I think also, Ray, it's very important that it also depends on the person.
Absolutely.
Life experiences play a big role in how you view yourself past a certain age. I don't think it's a matter, Chris, of dreaming more than it is a matter of what that person has been through in their life.
You got a great point.
And how what is their definition of success? What is their definition of, okay, did I accomplish everything I wanted to accomplish?
Right.
What do I have left to accomplish?
Absolutely.
And for a lot of people, they get to a certain age and they can say, okay, I've accomplished everything that I wanted to, and this is where I stop. Mm-hmm. And for others, it's more of like, no, I want to continue to go until I take my last breath.
All right.
And that's individual. Every person has their own way of thinking
and processing. And I always tell, when I am in therapy with my clients, first of all, I always tell this, right? And you guys have heard me saying it. My story is not the same as his, right? Everybody is so different. Not because we're of the same age means that
we're not.
Thanks a lot. But doesn't mean that he and I think the same, right? Everybody's different, doesn't matter. So we continuously develop and evolve as we go along. But yeah, there is that maturity also that we reach at a certain point where our concerns start to be different than it was, or that it is for a 20 or a 30-year-old.
And I think that also answers, do they have a switch question?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if we could compare it to something, yeah, maybe there is a switch. It's an internal switch, and I think, like Ray said, we all go through it. Yep. I can definitely tell you, I do not feel the same way I did when I was 20,
yep.
Or 25 even. It's
I mean, we have our moments, right? We have our moments that we want to be 20 again.
And I always tell in therapy, I always tell my patients, change is the only constant in life.
That's right.
Life is constantly changing for all of us. Life is constantly changing. The world is changing. Mm-hmm. And yeah, there is a switch. There is a moment in life where you kind of have that switch and things move and hopefully for the better. It's not the same. It's not like that for all. Mm-hmm. It's not like that for everyone, but there is a switch.
Yeah, and you are right. Before I go on to the next comment, you are right. Oliver is not the typical old guy because he really wasn't old. He was still a 24-year-old, according to the movie, right? 20-something-year-old no, PhD level, doctoral level student. So yeah, he was still, it's not, and this is what we were talking about at the beginning. It's not the best example of age gap, but we did want to use that movie because we thought it was very, very interesting, right? We want to go to the next one, the next comment that it says, yep, it says, when you're young, you're so hungry to do everything, such as travel, study, new job, new projects, party. Well, most of the times, for sure, there are young people who are more relaxed. So yeah, and that's what we've been talking about.
Yeah, and that was the case for me as a young person. I was so focused on being old at that time. I was an old person. I was
so we call it an old soul. Yeah, so was I. Yeah.
I was my thing. You know, I party now.
Right. Yeah.
I party now. When I was in my 20s, it was all about, you know, my relationship back then and going to school. And then we had a child and it was all about my, you know, Cesar, I love you, Papa, if you're watching. So, you know, and then as I go into my 30s, or as I am in my 30s, almost mid 30s, things change. You know, I party more now than I did when I was in my 20s.
Going back to the movie, let's just go back to the what we were talking about the father, right? The professor, and when he's having that discussion with Elliot, and he tells him, what was, you said it verbatim, when he was telling him about, you know, when you get older, your body changes, and then kind of nobody wants it. I think that's a perfect example of what we're talking about. I think for a lot of people, their mentality starts to change radically. Just like there's biological changes within themselves, there's also that other component of, you know, maturity and the way you think, the way that you see life is totally different. But it's interesting. Chris made a comment here. Thank you. Thanks, Fernando, for your comment. Chris says, the age for that switch is different for each person. Some is 30, some is 89. And that is totally correct. You know, there's not that, when we're talking about maturity, we're not saying age, right? Because I believe, go back to what we were just saying, I matured at a very young age. You know, I was always in adult conversation, adult thinking, reasoning, and to the point where I used to get in trouble with my mom when I was a teenager because she didn't want me around the adult conversation. But for some people, right, it's not about being 30, then 40, then 50. It just happens periodically, right? Yeah. So you could be a 25-year-old that is very mature and think like a 40-year-old, or you could be a vice versa. You could be a 40 that is thinking like a 24-year-old. We see it all the time in our community.
My son is 6 and thinks like a 50-year-old.
So, I mean, yeah, great comment. Thank you, guys. Keep coming. Keep those comments coming because it's very, very, very interesting. So another thing is, okay. So Fernando had a comment before we go. He says, the last conversation is so strong when his dad tells him to feel. Wow. Thank you, Fernando. Most of the times we try to overcome everything fast, but it's important to stop and feel whatever you're feeling in the moment. Wow, what an amazing comment.
I get chills.
Yeah, what an amazing, that is true. Feeling, right? Live in the moment. I'm going to go ahead and say this out there, right? Sometimes, right, when we're talking about feeling the moment, I think that, well, he was trying to send that message of live your life now. Enjoy what you have now. Go for it, right? And so from the context of, you know, you wanting to be or you being in a relationship with an older person and you're trying to live it the best that you can, amazing, right? Yeah. Live it for that. And now if you're on the other side and you're still struggling with those thoughts, then we're going to tell you the same thing that the professor said, feel the moment, right?
Live in the here and the now, allow yourself to feel. I always say what makes us different from any other animal, what makes human beings a superior species is not intelligence, it's the ability to feel. Animals cannot feel.
That's right.
Animals don't, as much as we put human characteristics on them, they can't feel the range of emotions that we can. So we got to allow ourselves to just feel whatever it is. And for Elio at that point in his life was love. He was in love. And it was beautiful. And there's nothing wrong with that. And the fact that his dad allowed him to feel that, it was amazing.
So I want to make a quick stop here because my friend Brent Parsons, hey Brent, just joined, and I love it. I love you guys. Those are very dear friends of mine who also, there's an age gap in their relationship. Brent, I'm not trying to put you out there, but I love you. And we're talking about age gap in a relationship. And I would love, if you can, Brent, if you can, no pressure, put a comment on how your relationship has been with Vanessa, right? We're talking about that age gap. You know, what do you think about that, right? Because we're talking about, you know, and there's people that are watching who are struggling, right? Who are fearful of, you know, stepping out and going and doing those, having those relationships with people who may be older or younger than they are. So from a perspective of a heterosexual couple, we'll love to hear from you. Love you.
People, we only have one life to live, and I think that's one of the comments that his dad makes to him.
That's right. You only have one life.
We only have one life to live. It's like, live it, and whatever your definition of happiness is, and whatever motivates you, whatever is your motivation to wake up in the morning and do it, go ahead and do it. It's okay. It's okay to feel. It's okay to allow yourself to just live the here and the now, and just love.
So let's go into the other comment, right? So you know, this person was talking about potentially dating a 24-year-old age gap, maybe having 30 plus years of difference, and maybe expressing some feelings of maybe some you know, being uncomfortable, right? Which is totally okay. With being uncomfortable, because, you know, we talk about where Chris was talking about being very noticeable, right? We're talking about that age of a difference being very, very noticeable, right?
And Ronnie says, carpe diem, seize the day.
Okay. You know, and for example, some of the things is like, for example, many things that may not be in common. Those are a couple of fears that a person going into a relationship, that there's such a big age gap that they may not have commonalities between them, right? One person is their interests are very different from the other, right? And that communication gap that it can produce due to life experiences. You were talking about life experiences, right? You know, and then that other component of the home, the family rejection, right? Some family members are not okay with their child, their son, daughter, dating someone who's older or younger than they are. So not being accepted is something that can trigger someone to possibly rethinking or not wanting to engage in a relationship, or not necessarily not wanting, it's just being afraid of engaging in a relationship with someone of an age gap, right? What do you think about that?
Again, I am the eternal optimist. So I always say, do whatever feels to you that is good, that is right. I think as human beings, we are pleasure-seeking individuals, and you have to go for it. You know, don't know, we don't know how long we're going to be in this planet. You know, we're here now, and then things change. Look the situation we're in right now. You know, one day we're going to work, and the next we can't.
Right, exactly.
You know, and what is stopping us from moving forward? What is stopping us from actually going for what makes us happy?
So let's put our therapist hat for a minute, right? Let's just put our therapist hat. So that's a good question that you as a person, as an individual, need to kind of dig in and ask yourself, what is it that is stopping me from going into this relationship or thinking about possibly going into this relationship, right? Because, you know, we're thinking about, you know, let's just, we discussed this earlier when we're discussing the movie outside of the camera, that, you know, this is a 1983 movie, right? Or it's supposed to be in 1983 time. We're in 2020. Yes, most things have changed. There's still things that have not. Most things have changed. So what is it that about this that is causing you to doubt or think if you truly want to pursue this relationship? And I want to say hi to my friend Christoph. Christoph, Hello, good to have you with us here. And Christoph also may want to put his 2 cents. We're asking for comments about age gap relationships. Are they good? What do you think about them? You know, have you ever experienced an age gap relationship? And what was your experience in an age gap relationship? Would you pursue it again? Would you not? And why? Right? So then the last question that we asked in the panel was, is there an acceptable age gap? Right? For some people, there may be, right, an acceptable. Maybe it's 10 years difference. Maybe it's 14 like me and Chris. Maybe it's 20, maybe it's 30, who knows, right? And the answer that I got was from Chris was really good. He says that should be an individual choice. There should not be such a thing as this is an acceptable age gap. It's an individual choice that that should be to the person, right?
Yep. And to the couple who's in the relationship.
That's correct.
So, Emily?
That's Dr. Stone. Hello, Dr. Stone. That's my professor, one of my ex-professors. Welcome. Dr. Stone, we're talking about age gap relationships and whether that is a problem in our community, correct? And nowadays it's a little bit more acceptable. It seems like people are actually embracing it. However, for other people, it's really difficult. They may be, seeking love, and then they find someone with an age gap difference, and they're afraid of going into it. So we've discussed multiple things, such as, being very noticeable in the community. And, we know that sometimes our community could be very abrupt in so many different ways. That communication piece, that maybe one is at a different level than the other. And there's that maturity level that hasn't reached. And again, we discussed earlier that maturity, for many, there's not such a thing as a number for maturity because we're different. And then the other component was that we got from people was the family reaction. What is their family going to think when you're trying to date somebody that's older than you or younger than you, right? And the last thing that we were talking about, is this acceptable? Is there an acceptable age? Again, we go back to that individuality. I think it's to the individual. I think that it should not be, there's no set.
Exactly. What is acceptable for the couple? What is acceptable for the relationship? Right.
And then we did touch up on sometimes that society may have saying, and we heard between 5 and 7 years should be a decent number. But at the same time, we go back to that one. We only have that one life to live. It should be based on, the love and the respect and what you really want in that relationship for you and for the other person.
So let's talk about some tips that we can do,
yes,
and use.
Absolutely.
So I want you all at home to raise your hands if you're in an age gap relationship. Holler. Yes. So communication is the number one tip.
Yes.
Communication. The communication needs to be there. That you need to communicate with your partner.
Yes.
Everything. And let me state that is not only in age gap relationships, in every relationship.
That's correct.
Communication is always the key. If you are not able to communicate what you think and what you feel and what you want and what are your needs, you will not be able to receive anything from your partner or give anything to your partner because you don't know.
Right. You were talking about, or what are each other's expectations, right? And this is what we were discussing, right? When you're going into a relationship where there's an age gap, right? You need to understand, first of all, we were talking about it's meeting each other, right? Where are you? And, and meeting each other where they're at and then working together, right? And not by necessarily, diminishing or the younger person calling you're just old, or the other one, you're just too young, right? But it's having that communication that is healthy for the couple, and that is going to get you somewhere, and, understanding that you guys are not the same. And you know what? The best thing about this is that this has nothing to do with age also, because there are relationships that are right there as far as age, and they still have communications issues because they can't understand each other. So,
people talk.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to say and express what your needs are, what your wants are. What is it that you want in your relationship? What is your expectation of you, or your expectations of your relationship? What is your expectations of your partner?
Yes.
And then don't be afraid to receive that in return. You know,
Yes.
what are your expectations of me?
Mm-hmm.
What do you expect of me? And kind of talk about what is it that makes this relationship work.
Absolutely.
So we talked about, is maturity is relative. So is age the only barometer for maturity? And the answer
Absolutely
is no,
not.
absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
Age is just a number.
Mm-hmm.
People who are 50 are very immature, and we see it all the time. And we could have someone who's 25 and be a lot more mature than a person who is 60. Yeah. So no, you have to meet, you have to see what the maturity level is of the person you're with.
Right.
And then go from there and build upon that.
Right. Meet them where they're at. That's what we're talking about.
And that is actually our next tip. Mm-hmm. Meet in the middle. Mm-hmm. What are your mutual interests? Mm-hmm. What is the glue that holds your relationship together? What are the things that you have in common? It's very easy for us to concentrate always on the things that separate us. Mm-hmm. It's always very easy to see our own flaws and to see other people's flaws. But what is it that keeps you guys together?
Right.
What is it that brings you close? And work on those and concentrate on those. Mm-hmm. The negatives, they're always going to be negatives in every single relationship, whether there's an age gap or not. Mm-hmm. Heterosexual, homosexual, it does not matter. There's always going to be differences. But concentrate, make it a point to concentrate on what is it that makes a relationship work, and just do that.
Yeah, and you have a point here. Stay there, right? Mm-hmm. Don't give up so quickly, or don't think that this is not going to work because of this. No, it's just it's about working. A relationship is constantly changing, constantly. There's two individuals who are at it, with different thinking, different perspectives, and it's okay. So as long as we can keep that communication open, where we're together trying to meet each other, where they're at, and being able to work those things out, right? Yeah. And the last one.
Face uncertainty. Yes. There's always going to be uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen a week from now. Hell, I don't know what's going to happen 5 minutes from now. Mm-hmm. But we have to just make sure that we are certain that whatever we're going to face together.
That's right.
And I made a point here that says people as, and I always say this to everywhere I go, it's like people are as uncomfortable as you are with whatever it is. It doesn't matter if we're talking about age gap. It doesn't matter if we're talking about sexual orientation. It doesn't matter if we're talking about being fat, skinny. People are as uncomfortable with you as you are with yourself. Mm-hmm. So be comfortable with yourself. Be comfortable with who you are. Be comfortable with your partner.
Absolutely.
Be comfortable in your relationship. And as you grow more confident and comfortable in your relationship, people will suit to follow. And that's how it works.
They will embrace it.
Why are stores out of toilet paper? Oh God. One person grabbed the roll and the rest
Everybody followed.
So the same applies to us.
Hashtag send me toilet paper.
So that's how life works. You are at the as comfortable as you are and as confident as you are, people are going to be.
That's right.
So
what are the solutions?
What are the solutions? Talk about, again, communication.
Right.
Don't concentrate on the problem. Mm-hmm. Don't concentrate on, okay, we're X amount of generations different. No, mm-hmm. We are X generations similar, mm-hmm. right? And just stay on there and always talk about solutions. The problems are going to be there, but if there's no point in talking about the problems if there aren't going to be solutions to those problems. Right. If you don't have a solution, don't talk about it. Just leave it. When you finally sit and come up with a solution, then sit down and see where you both are and how can you both contribute to resolving the issue.
Or at least open up about it to your partner and say, hey, I have this issue. I don't know how to resolve it. I don't know what to do, right? Goes back to that communication piece where, you should be able to communicate to your partner how you're feeling, right? And, if this is an issue for you that, you're facing, like, you don't want to go out with your partner because you feel they're too old or they're too young, talk about it, open up, and not in a hurtful or negative way, but just simply say, look, I'm feeling some kind of way because of the way people are looking at us, or and I'll give this little example real briefly because we're about to finish our session today here. But I remember that when I first started dating Chris, right, and I had just come out to being a gay man, I remember that this was very, very difficult transition for my kids because they were teenagers and they were, obviously, it was all new to them. They were going through that process themselves. And we happened to go to an IHOP to eat breakfast. Chris and I invited, our kids to go. And I remember this lady, this family, particularly looking at Chris and I, whether they were looking at us and thinking something, I don't know, but my middle child took it very offensively. And he was so angry. He started saying, why are they looking at you like that? And we don't know, right? And I had to tell him, Ray, you don't know if they're looking at us because they feel like, they see us as gay people or whatever. You don't know what it is, right? We don't know, but
whatever it is not your problem.
But whatever it is not exactly. And that's what I told him. I said, son, at the end of the day, I'm happy. I'm happy with who I am. I love my partner. He loves me. I love you guys. You guys love me as your father, and nothing has changed that. So, let's just go and embrace that, right? But, it's just an example of the way that things are and the way that things work sometimes for people. You don't know, right? So, yeah.
So, love people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love is what's going to save
so
us.
The question of the $1 million here is: do you engage in an age gap relationship or not? Should you not? Right?
Mm-hmm.
We can't tell you that. We cannot answer that for you. You have to truly find that within yourself and what you really want, right? But the only thing that we can say is, following the movie, and we're going to use the movie as a thing here, is like the professor said to his son, you only have one life. Right? And what are you going to do? Are you going to live it to the maximum? Are you going to enjoy, this life?
Yep.
I think that will be my final thought. I don't know what other thoughts you have.
Definitely. #love, #feel, #enjoy your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you guys for being with us tonight. We appreciate you. Remember to like us on Facebook. Share this with your friends. Please help us reach out to other people that are in the community or outside of the community, because when we talk about age gap, it's not only in homosexual relationships, it's also in heterosexual relationships. So please share us, like us, comment, continue sending us comments about what we discussed here today. Doesn't matter, just let us know, because we can always go back and touch up on that. Again, I do want to say this, right? Pride Support Services of Charlotte is an organization with the intention of being there for our community, right? We want to be there. We want to support you. I know this is a time of struggle. This is a time of need. And for all of our friends and everyone out there who may be experiencing anxiety, depression symptoms, or maybe suicidal thoughts or anything like that, I will say to you this: please contact 911 if it's an emergency situation immediately. Or there's other lines in our website. We have other options for you to call. However, if you want to talk to someone because you're feeling depressed or anxious or something of that nature, please reach out to us. There are 2 phone numbers in our Facebook page. You can contact. That comes to either Xavier or myself, and we would love to talk to you. We want to be there to support you, okay? Please call us. Write us also our info@pridesupportservices.org. And please continue to stay in touch with us. It's very important. We care. We want to make sure that you're okay. Next, I think it's next Thursday when we post the next movie.
Yes.
Next Thursday, we're going to post, probably Fernando's going to post a new poll, because we're doing polls to see what movie we want to watch for the next topic that we're going to have the following week. So make sure that you vote on it, be part of it. Like I said, just let us know, give us feedback too, on what you want to hear and what you want to.
We definitely want you guys to interact. We want to hear your feedback. We want you to immerse yourself in this with us.
Yes.
We're having fun. We love what we do. And if no one has told you today, I love you. So I love you. I love you.
Yes.
So Please be safe.
Hugs.
Yes, stay home.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Stay home, please.
Stay home, be safe, and we'll see you soon.
Next week. Talk to you guys later. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.